really, really hard, and they execute the system, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir. Trust.
He's pretty big trust. Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir.
Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.
You're back on the Jumbo Set podcast, presented as always by Jimmy's Famous Seafood, also presented to you by Clipper City Barber Company. Might as well shout them out. Here we are in the studio, in the back of the barber shop here in Fells Point. My name is Jake Louque, and I'm joined to my right by gentle Spen Crenshaw. How are we doing tonight, pal?
Doing well. We were at the end of the bar. Now we're in the back of the barber shop. I don't know if that might be one rung above, maybe.
It could be. I mean, listen, I feel like John Harbaugh seems to know all. So maybe we need to get somebody. We've got some shooters. We've got some hitters among the Ravens media press corps. Maybe we have them prompt him on that this week. Is being in the back of a barbershop, is that more so than the end of the bar? Is that a higher strata of society, let's say?
I think by a hair, by one individual chinny chin chin hair. We're live, Clipper City Studio. Thank you so much for having us. Shout out to my buddy Sam. Go get a haircut, 1716 Thames Street out here. There's an event space, a private patio. We're doing a watch party on Sunday. We are going to be having some watch parties, October, November, December, for listeners, away games to be announced back here. So keep an eye out for those if you want to come join us. BYOB, we'll have some food for you, some things of that nature. So come check it out in Fells Point. Much better mood than I was a couple days ago and yesterday. The ire has worn off a little bit. Nice, calm, overcast day, which I always like. But nonetheless, the Ravens are in dire straits here, 0-2. And looking at some playoff probability projections, things of that nature, 0-3 is bad. 0-3 is very bad to make the playoffs. You're not making the playoffs 50% of the time. At 0-3, the Ravens have won a lot of games, but the urgency and the execution and how clean the Ravens need to be in this game upcoming following two inconsistent performances that looked all too familiar is intense, I think is the word. It's very intense what is happening and what needs to happen over the next few days leading into Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys, who we've always supported, Jake. We've always been Dallas Cowboys positive.
Yeah, no, we have. It's always a treat to dive deep into the Dallas Cowboys, one of the more entertaining, if nothing else, franchises in professional sports. And yeah, it's you said the words dire straits there. That's pretty much that's about the size of it. 0-2. They've been 0-2 4 times in the past in this franchise's history. They never made the playoffs in any of those seasons. One of them was 1999, funny enough. Which was the first year they ever went 0-2. I went back and looked. They wound up 8-8, which was the best finish in franchise history. 2002, they started 0-2. They make their way to 7-9. That was very much a rebuilding team. They had purged pretty much the entire team for a salary cap purge under Ozzie Newsome's tutelage there after the Super Bowl. They said, we're rebuilding, went ahead and did it. 2005, another one, just a complete washout of a year. It was kind of like, is Kyle Bowler, can he make this thing happen? Answer was no. Whole team fell apart as a result. And then everyone remembers 2015. That one, I'm kind of feeling similar to that one right now. I remember how I felt after those first 2 weeks. One of them a loss to the Denver Broncos against Gary Kubiak, who had just taken over as their head coach in Denver, which, you know, I walked out of that game feeling like, yeah, okay, like that's probably going to be a decent enough team. They still have Peyton Manning, this, that, and the other. That team would go on to win the Super Bowl. But then they went into Oakland and they played a Raiders team that's, you know, Derek Carr. That was kind of his coming out season. He very much came out all over the Ravens. But, you know, he put together a big game. The Ravens lose in a shootout. It was like 37-33 or something. And yeah, it's just funny. The echoes of history. The Ravens lose to the Raiders in week 2. I'm feeling dire straits, like he said. And I think overall the context for me is the big thing where I was looking at this season. I was looking at some of the questions on the roster, yes, but I was also looking at the schedule. Like, this is a first place schedule. It's going to be a difficult one. And when you're at home and you're playing Gardner Minshew, that's just one that you're going to have. And if you don't have those, like, there are going to be other ones that are going to be tough sledding, like at a Dallas Cowboys team in their house who just got spanked by the New Orleans Saints and probably are feeling just as desperate as the Ravens to get back on track. But I think they have pretty good reason to believe that they could be able to this week. You've got the Bills coming to town, obviously. We'll see what happens with that one. Then you go on the road to Cincy again. I don't know, man. Like, if you come out of that at 2-3, I think you'd have to feel pretty good about yourself at that point, because that would be 2-1 over this next stretch. And for this team to be sitting at 2-3, that would have been tough before the season, but it's just something that you're going to have to try and play for, I think, at this point.
It is. And the Ravens are probably not going to be sitting in any playoff position until I would think late October at this point. So this Cowboys game is huge. Next week at home, Sunday night, shaking off the demons against the Bills, who have given you a lot of trouble. The Ravens got them in 2019. The Bills have had them twice since. They overcame a 20-3 deficit. The Ravens offense in the second half, the reason why they blow these leads is because they stop scoring. They can't step on the throat and cut off the air supply. And the Bills were kind of at the forefront of that. I would say that was pretty early on when this blowing fourth quarter leads, particularly at home, saga started. So Josh Allen looks awesome. He looks like the best quarterback in the NFL through 2 weeks, aside from maybe one Derek Carr, who I was reading Aaron Schatz, our friend over at Football Outsiders. They did mirroring number one pitcher in the world rankings. They mirrored number one quarterback in the world. And since week 7 of last week, they said Derek Carr was the number 6. Maybe it was number 5, Lamar Jackson, number 6. Some interesting reads there. I'd definitely go check out his work. It's unfortunate Football Outsiders is no longer intact, but you can still find his work. Go check out his Twitter. But Derek Carr's been great. Josh Allen's been great. Dak Prescott put in a precarious situation last week against those Saints, and suddenly down 10-0, has some tipped balls, things like that don't go his way. So the Cowboys in a very similar position. There's a loser leaves town game coming up. And to look back at this Raiders game, man, I mean, we talk so much about the offensive line. I made the video about the offensive line yesterday. We talked about it on Sunday. Daniel Faalele ripped to shreds. John Harbaugh defending him very much, basically saying Ben Cleveland is not as good, will not play as well, all of those things. We can talk about that until we're blue in the face. And Shannon Sharp tweeted out today about how Lamar Jackson's got to get it done despite those things, and that it's a reflection of him. And I mean, that last sack that he took on first down, and then kind of throwing up the white flag there with the draw and then the dump off and trying to play some defense compounded by the punt. I agree with Shannon a little bit. I mean, Gardner Minshew's offensive line was worse.
Yeah.
And he made plays. And specifically, I'll say Davante, he enabled Davante Adams and Brock Bowers to make plays. He had 2 massive throws on the move, which I talked about in the preview. That's what I wanted. Get Gardner Minshew moving, make him have to make difficult throws downfield, outside. And then we have Davante Adams floating on the water tension, dragging his toes, the challenge that goes down there. Brock Bowers, man, is really good. Brock Bowers was incredible in this game. The way they used him, isolated him, got him in different areas of the field on different defenders. And then in the scramble drill late to get down to the 1 and end up scoring a touchdown that was really the defining play of this game to me, was that Brock Bowers scramble drill and him finding space, separating, pushing off, being a big body, not just getting tackled at the 5, but pushing his way down to the 1. I think he's something like 5th in receiving yards and 12th in receptions through 2 weeks as a rookie tight end, which is unheard of. You very rarely see production that quickly out of rookie tight ends. So he was awesome. Davante Adams was awesome. And nobody on the Ravens was offensively late. They didn't get big plays to help out. Man, Isaiah Likely, it felt like maybe should have been the go-to guy in retrospect. You think of trying to get him the ball the way that the Raiders did with Bowers. And I would say Likely and Bowers are somewhat similar players athletically after the catch, but frame kind of. Likely maybe a little taller and a little more wiry, but also very strong. Dominant at the catch point, good after the catch, physical, can go pick up yards, all those kinds of things. And it is unfortunate because, again, it's looking at the Ravens defense and Zach Orr and, they blew the lead, but it's a reflection of the offense. Did the Raiders make some plays? Yeah, but Ravens defense made them have to make plays. A couple penalties don't help their case. The pass interference is what it is. The line judge in that game calling so many penalties, whatever. I don't want to be harping on the refs on Tuesday evening and into Wednesday, so we'll throw that one aside. But man, Gardner Minshew made plays, enabled guys to make plays. Last year, he enabled Michael Pittman to make a play through a fuck it ball. And Michael Pittman went up in that overtime and grabs one, contested. I think he got held too on it or got a face mask or something like that. Add an extra 15 on it. So offense has to figure out how to make plays late. They're not going to do that. We talked about the straight drop back with the sack and Crosby and Falele and that whole thing. But man,
the approach seemed to be, let's just get through this one. Like, let's try to get Henry going a little bit. Let's mix in some of the receiving options, but not go too crazy with any of them. Let's just get through this one. Let's worry about Dallas, right? And on the converse, Gardner Minshew looked like he was playing for his football life out there. Like he, to your point on the recap show, he was getting the shit beaten out of him by Owe, by Matabike, by Travis Jones. All these guys were just bringing it over and over, and he just kept getting up, straightening that helmet and getting back after it. And that's a guy that's, this might be his last shot as a starter, and he absolutely played like it. And you got to tip your cap to him. I mean,
I would say this is his shot as a true starter. This is his one real shot as a starter,
and he could still play his ass off, and they could still draft a guy. Like it's just one of those spots where like you've got enough tape on the guy where you could still just say like, yeah, okay, but we're just gonna still try and find a young player and move on from this. But you got to credit him for just with the reckless abandon that he played and just putting the ball right where Davante Adams could go and get it. Not being afraid to throw it to a contested Davante Adams and letting him make a play, which happened a couple times. He had a couple on Brandon Stevens. I think Brandon Stevens hung with him fairly well throughout the game. He had the 4th down stop that I think
he made him have to go above and beyond.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the one down the sideline that I don't see a lot of people talking about, it was either Stevens or Humphrey on him and toe tapped, sort of standing up. It was different than the other one, but he kind of hauled it in and put it right between the numbers. And that was just another incredible play by him. He even had the drop touchdown that we talked about a little bit too, where it looked like he was going to walk that one in and he dropped it. That was really his only big mishap of the game. And overall, like I said, it was just two teams in two different places. And one of them played like they wanted to go win it. And one of them played like they didn't want to lose. And when you play like you don't want to lose, you put yourself. I feel like fucking Herm Edwards right now. Like, what am I even talking about? I don't know. And I shouldn't have to be talking like this. I shouldn't be in this position, but here we are. And overall, man, I just keep coming back to it. Like, John Harbaugh, if he can't win this game, what are you here for? What are you here for? Like, you're supposed to be the one that raises the floor in situations like this. Like, that's what I keep coming back to. And the 2 miscues with the challenges that costs you time, the stuff with the penalties, you can go back and forth with that. But let's get our players in line next week, because you can't just keep giving these teams extra yards. If you give the Raiders 100+ extra yards on penalties, like, that's probably, 6 points that you cost yourself there. And what was the difference in the game? 3 points. It's crazy.
It is.
I'm not over it. I've not moved past this one. I can't get on X. I can't do my usual stuff. I'm not listening to my shows. I'm bereft emotionally. I am in a glass case of emotion after this loss. This is terrible. This might be the worst loss of the John Harbaugh tenure. So bad.
Last few years, it's definitely up there for sure.
Against all the expectations and everything, and against just like
the fact that it was the home opener and the fact that you were a foot from beating the Chiefs, and to have a letdown
week and a half to prepare.
It was rest. You had a rest advantage. It's a West Coast team, so to speak, a desert team coming east for a 1 o'clock game.
Yeah.
And fading late again. There's a different offensive coordinator. You brought in Derrick Henry. You have a new offense. You have Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton. Your front was great. You stopped the run and weren't able to. Again, it really just comes down to being put in a spot they didn't think they were going to find themselves in. Felt like their offense was going to get rolling. He always talks about adversity. So much talk about adversity. Who's got it better than us? Adversity. When you were in adversity, it came down to the play of the game, which was the Max Crosby sack in the 4th quarter with 3 minutes and change left.
And the adversity is totally in this situation. The adversity is totally self-inflicted. Again, you're at home. You're playing a middling at best quarterback. You're well rested. This is the home opener. This is just one that you got to have. And like, if you want to talk to me about adversity, fine. But like, I don't know if I'm buying that line this time around, because this one was on a silver platter for you to go and get, and you probably could have gotten it 3 or 4 different ways. And you just piss down your leg.
Again, it feels like they have no checks and balances in place so often late, where there's a glaring Achilles or a glaring weakness and it needs to be taken care of. In this case, it's not leaving McCary and Falele 2-on-2 against the really good rushers. And they do. And no one knows. The coordinator didn't know. The quarterback didn't know. Harbaugh probably didn't know, hey, we're running a straight drop back. They're probably going to stunt. They did it the entire game. You knew they were going to do it the entire game. It's who Patrick Graham is. It's who Max Crosby is. It's why they bring in Christian Wilkins to pair with him. And you played right into their hand. You did exactly what they would have preferred. You went into a straight drop back. You didn't use play action. And it's those errors. It is schematic error, deep schematic error. And it's not hard, I don't think, to look at and say, wow, in hindsight, why did we leave our terrible right side of the line alone without a chip? We didn't protect them with play action. We didn't use enough play action at all. That is coaching error.
I could point that out. And like, I'm not a tape head, but like, I know what a stunt is, and I know who Max Crosby is. And like, I know who's on the right side of that line. And like, when you're in that critical situation, when it is nut cutting time, it's like, okay, we're just going to put these two guys on an island with whoever it is. And then with Crosby, and then you're surprised when he just absolutely just Jamal Crawford just crosses you up and just ends the game right then and there. And just the dumbfounded looks again, and just the typical bullshit. Like, it's just, I don't know. I love John Harbaugh. I love him so much. I do think he is a great coach, but I just look around at the league at some of these young coaches, even in Antonio Pierce, who's a very energetic guy and brings just a different type of, millennial type energy. And then I look at John Harbaugh and I just kind of wonder, like, in those moments where he's got that look plastered across his face, the Eli Manning, the whatever you want to call it, it's like, are we getting a little long in the tooth here? Like, why are we surprised by all this? Is the game moving too quick for you? Has the world passed you by, to use a parlance of my own? It makes you wonder. I mean, like, if he doesn't do something miraculous here, we're going to be having a serious conversation. And I know a lot of people already are, but I expect it starts to happen within the building for the first time in 6 years, 7 years.
Contract runs through 2025. We'll see. There's a lot of football left. The Ravens are not going to disgrace him and fire him in the middle of the season.
No, it's not going to happen in the season, but I'm just saying, like,
if it's like 0-7 somehow, that would be my guess. If the Ravens are 0-6 or 7, I would set the over under at 6.5. Won't happen. Again,
I don't even, like, he could go 4-13 or whatever it is this year, and I think they'll still let him finish it out. But that could be it, and like, firing him in season isn't going to do anything anyway. I think part of this is very much a roster issue too. Like we talked about all off season with the offensive line. What's the plan? We're going to rebuild the offensive line. Well, you tore it down. You didn't really rebuild it back up. I mean, you drafted a guy in the second round who I think is promising, but that's going to take a little while. And then the plan seems to be Daniel Falele at right guard, even though, to your point, there's evidence that another player might be better for that spot. It seems to be Andrew Voorhees at left guard, who's been fine, not spectacular, probably pretty bad in some spots. And I don't know. It just like I'm having flashbacks to 2021 a little bit, where it's like, okay, like, we're just going to do all this other stuff and not worry about the offensive line, and Alejandro Villanueva, maybe that'll be acceptable. And that winds up being the Achilles heel here. And funny enough about that team, I mean, that was probably the one season that I would consider a bad offensive line in front of Lamar Jackson. They were still 8-2 at one point, I think. Right. And then you lose 2 games in a row. Jackson gets hurt. You lose the rest of them the whole way, and you wind up at 8-9. I don't know. It just
a lot of hero ball.
Yeah.
A lot of wear and tear on the quarterback. He ends up putting on weight probably because of that.
Yeah.
Then dropping the weight also because of that. And we talked about it. It's a full circle moment. Not to repeat ourselves. Wanted to pull up a quick clip here of what I consider, I mentioned the Bowers play. We said we were going to do on the jumbo set. We were going to do our overreactions and underreactions. And I want to put an underreaction for myself on this. So this is late in the game, 2nd and 20. This is after the Matabike sack. I'll rewind it up to there. And whatever, it's fine. I'll leave that on the side. So after the sack, Michael Pierce, OA, huge play, crunch, you get your yards back, ball don't lie. Everybody's tweeting ball don't lie. And we looked at this at 2nd and 20. Here, should be coming through in a moment.
Ball don't lie, by the way. Ojabo pile drove him into the turf. That would have been an unnecessary roughness. So.
Yeah, sure. So coming through a little choppy here, maybe trying things out here. But again, this is going to be, you got a bunch set to the top of the screen, and we see this huge void in the middle of the field here, right here. I don't know if it's showing up with my arrow. We'll see. I'll figure it out. Maybe it'll drag on in a second. It's a little delay. But you can see the bunch at the top of the screen, right up top. It's a little blurry, but we've got Adams. We've got this big middle area of space. It's 2nd and 20. It's late in the game, and there's a huge void in the middle of the field. And this, to me, was the error. We're going to see it play through. It might be a little choppy. We'll figure it out later. But ultimately, should be playing. I don't know. But Davante Adams ends up running a dig against this and getting a huge conversion. It's super choppy there. We'll figure something out for next time we do this. But super, super, super choppy there. Awful, terrible, no good, rotten. You knew that's what they were going to do in that big moment. Who are they going to get the ball to? Davante Adams. And okay, he was spectacular on we mentioned the Brandon Stevens play. We mentioned the pass interference. Okay, I'm not mad at that. You know, maybe you can shade the safety, whatever. Bill Belichick talks about doubling the one with your worst corner, all that stuff. Sure. But that to me was just critical error. You see the trips, you see that you have the middle of the field. And I don't know, this is maybe this is my overreaction of, I don't know, I'm going to put myself into a brain blender. Underreaction of me saying, hey, they're going to throw over the middle of the field when the time's critical. We watched them do it against the Chargers. It's going to be Adams on a dagger concept or a dig, one of those inbreakers, past the linebackers with the game on the line. That's where they're going to go. When they need a conversion, that's where they're going to go. You made it easy. That play was easy. They got right to it. There was no fuss about it. They wipe out the sack yardage. They convert a new set of downs, and then they go down and score. That, to me, was critical error. I think that is the one situation I'm going to put blame. My overreaction maybe is that I'm going to put blame on Roquan Smith, who should have gotten more depth there, in my opinion. Should have known that letting them get to 3rd and 8 is fine. And where's Davante Adams? He snuck behind him. The safeties are not going to drive on that typically. So with the game on the line there a little bit, you got a sack, got it wiped out by the roughing, which, like you said, Jake, maybe it's really thrown because of Ajabo, and they talk about it, and they're like, all right, well, Ajabo fell on him anyway, whatever. We'll just give Matt BK the penalty. It doesn't even matter. They could have corrected it, and everyone like, oh, okay, bullshit, but whatever. So immediately on the ensuing play, you give Davante Adams the middle of the field. We talked about the Brock Bowers return route, sail route. I wish I had some clips here. We'll figure it out next time we're in studio to be a little cleaner. But the Brock Bowers return, I also did in the preview. Oh, play action. Brock Bowers drags all day, and then he cruises back on a 7 route into the middle of the field. Some of those things. It was there on tape. It's who the Raiders are. They were setting you up for it all day. You let it happen. So those 2 plays to me were easy. And they were plays that we didn't see the Ravens offense make. It wasn't easy. They had to fight and claw and scrap and sustain long drives. And I did a full breakdown on the YouTube. You can check out the film breakdown playlist. Even when they made plays, their offensive line was in spite of Falele. It was in spite of Voorhees. It was in spite of their offensive line. So football is tough for the Ravens offense, and the Ravens defense a couple times made it easy. You gave them the look they wanted. They want a too high look. And I think the Raiders, I'm going to give huge credit to them, to their offensive staff. They are running a West Coast offense that understands how to set up, progress throughout the game, and attack cover 2, cover 4, split safety looks. That Bowers play down the sideline and that Adams play over the middle in 2nd and 20. That's where you go. Those are the soft spots. They set you up for it in the first half, and they got you in the second half. And I'll give credit to Gardner Minshew, credit to Davante Adams, credit to Brock Bowers. Jacoby Myers makes a tough catch there for them. Marlon Humphrey pushes off of him. Raiders did a great job being super physical at the catch point, all those things. So, man, I mean, to look back, I said, and I guess my overreaction here, my bad take, my mega culpa, which we did last year, is that I said you played the Chiefs, who are more complex. It's going to be easier to play the Raiders. That worked in the first half, and then you let it go in the second half. They tore them up in the second half, aided by some penalties, sure, but attack those soft spots. And, man, more disguise is needed. More disguise. And maybe that's where you miss Mike McDonald a little bit, being a little bit more deceptive. I think they did a nice job passing off and something. They did a better job passing off trips and some of those things, especially early in the game. I had another play pulled up, but they did it cleanly. But, man, Raiders make plays at the end of the game. Gardner Minshew makes plays at the end of the game. Your offense doesn't. It's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I think I didn't really have a ton. I do think a little bit of an overreaction, and I was just as much with people that were kind of getting a little mad about some of the strategy toward the end of the game. And I liked the Kohler Express call a little bit more that I think about it, where I mean, it looked like he got it anyway. They did run the play, and it got called back because Henry, I think, shifted his foot or anything. They got him on a false start there, his second false start of the game in the same situation, which is very bizarre. Let's get on the same page there, everyone. I don't know. Everyone's like, why aren't you running Derrick Henry? Why don't you do this one? Just do what you got to do to get the yard. And it feels like they did it in that spot, and like that's fine. And I don't know if Henry doesn't shift his foot there. They're working with a fresh set of downs, and we'll see what happens. Maybe that's when you mix Derrick Henry there in with all that. But I think we harped on that a little bit on the show, and that is certainly one of those little things that has been kind of a motif of the year for me. But outside of that, it's like, I don't know, like they executed it and it gets called back. There's just other stuff that I'm still just left scratching my head over. We can't talk enough about the challenges, just wasting timeouts and just, killing yourself in that way. Like Harbaugh has to get that shit ironed out, man. Like it costs you 40 seconds at the end of a game. That's huge. I mean, 40, like if they had 40 more seconds to work with there, maybe they could have put Tucker in range. And, that could be another thing we talk about with Justin Tucker. Who knows what's going on with the 50 plus stuff at this point. But yeah, overall, I think the Kohler Express call was fine. There was some other stuff they did offensively. I thought those 2 touchdown drives looked very nice. I don't know. It feels like they're kind of working around this offensive line as much as they can at this point. They were doing that in the Chiefs game a little bit, and I think we gave them a pass. They can't allow that to become a trend because, it's going to be a long season if so.
More play actions needed desperately. I'll say it 500 more times throughout the week. Saints chewed the Cowboys front to this point, which is a dangerous spot because they've gotten so chewed up. Their fronts are so stupid. They are leaving huge splits of space against the run. They are in terrible positions against the run. They're getting chewed up against play action consistently.
Play action and a little bit more. And you never know with zone read because like it could have just been Lamar handing the ball off, but like a little bit more zone read with Lamar keeping it, I think could have kept the Raiders a little bit more honest. It felt like he was not doing that as much as he was against the Chiefs.
Was on the injury report, did try and, give it his all against the Chiefs, put his shoulder down a couple times. And maybe that is a reason why you lose this game because you were a little more unwilling to.
I think it probably is. And like, I think that is sort of what went into some of that decision-making by him. And like for him, like, listen, I don't fault him, man. He doesn't want to get hurt. And like, he obviously, like we talked about, he lost the weight and everything. And I don't know, he doesn't want to get banged up as much, but sometimes
he ended up getting back. Max Crosby fucking suplexed him because they don't run play action.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't run the ball.
Yeah. If you got to find a way to keep him honest. And like all the people that talk about wanting to get more wide receivers and get more, spread out with this offense. It's just like, that's just not who Lamar is. Like, he's not going to be throwing to his third wide receiver all the time. And he's turnover averse as it is. He doesn't love to throw the deep ball when it's not there. He's just not that kind of guy. Like, he's a guy who you want him because he can run the ball, because he is the like Davante Adams said, the greatest ball carrier this sport has ever seen. I mean, it might be a little hyperbolic, but he's right up there, if not. And
easily the best quarter in terms of quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah. Best dual threat of all time, in my opinion. And it's just like, that's a type of game where you want to see him cut it loose and go and win it. And I understand why he didn't, because he got his ass kicked against the Chiefs the week before. And again, that could just be another coaching thing where it's like, they either got to tell him, hey, it's time you got the green light to go and hit some lanes here and we'll figure it out after the fact. But because of, what happened in Kansas City, maybe he didn't want to do that. And I just think that's a shame. It's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. And a good point was made. I can't remember where, but we've talked about how the Ravens offense seeks to be so multiple and so diverse and so unpredictable. The quarterback that you have makes you unpredictable without having to try to be.
He is the system. How often have we said that? I mean,
his ability to run the ball, to keep edges honest, to do a lot of those things is the deception. Without even needing to run the option game that much, you just show it a couple times. So I said, I wanted to see him run early.
Yeah.
In the preview, I wanted to see him run early so that you give that trepidation. Oh, he might hold it. That's how you get Henry going. That's the point of Henry.
Yeah.
Is soften the middle, soften the outside, soften their willingness to commit.
It's funny,
and bite down the line. We see Max Crosby come screaming across Isaiah Likely's face for a stuff early.
I was chuckling at that Gruden clip before the year well, you give it to Derrick Henry, and then you got Lamar Jackson going this way. But then what happens when Lamar keeps it, and who's going to cover Derrick? I was kind of chuckling at that, but like looking back, it's like, shit, man. Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the whole deal. And like to open Derrick Henry up, to your point, Lamar's got to keep it a little bit more often.
Ravens ran for 151 yards in this game. 25 of that is on the final play. So ran for about 125 on about 26 carries. Can't remember if there's a kneel in there. Derrick Henry, 18 carries, 84 yards. A lot of Derrick Henry in this game. But yeah, wanted to see them utilize the legs. Lamar Jackson, only 4 rushes. The final play was a rush. So I'm going to say 4 rushes for, 20 yards in this game. Wasn't a part of the plan. Didn't want to do it. Thought that might be the case. And that's why I thought run him a little bit early so you don't have to run him later. Present the threat early. And then once in maybe the third quarter or early in the fourth quarter, that is setting an opponent up. Maybe if Todd Monken hears this, he'll just laugh in my fucking face. I'm just, sitting here in the back of a barbershop talking about what I think, but I think
they can laugh. They can laugh all they want. They're sitting there at 0-2 and they got a tough gauntlet in front of them. So laugh about it and, say you don't know this and you don't know that. And you're sitting at the end of the bar. You can do that all you want. But if you're not winning football games like you kind of were when you said that, even as much as people would have, I think that was in one of those years where they kind of were, fringe playoff team. That's fine. But like, if you're going to sit there and do that right now, we don't want to hear it. And like, you've got John Harbaugh at the presser saying, some of these things where it's like the reason we're, it speaks to the fact that we're a good team, that we have all these fourth quarter leads that we can blow.
I do agree with that. I do agree with it.
I agree with it too. I 100% agree with it, but it's got like, it has to come from a place of power. Like if you're going to be saying that when you're sitting there at 0-2, like people are already tired of hearing that shit. I agree with them saying it. I understand why people are tired of it on the other hand too. And you can say that when you're, in the thick of a playoff race, but right now you are not even in that conversation and you're in danger of falling out of it. So if you're going to take that stance, you better go show them who you are.
Very rare loss. It felt like I was going to try to look it up earlier. I didn't have the time to do it on StatHead. 5 sacks. Did not lose the turnover battle. Outgained their opponent by, where did I have it? Outgained their opponent by 123 yards. Third down conversion was bad. The Ravens were really bad on third down in this game. Very, very bad. Very disoriented. So maybe that waters it down a little bit. But to outgain your opponent by that much, not lose the turnover battle, have 5+ sacks at home. Terrible loss, man. Really a terrible loss. And I'm really putting it on the Ravens offense at the end of the day after going back and watching. Again, couple plays, Davante Adams, Brock Bowers make a couple plays that are probably, you want back, but the Ravens defense made it tough.
Yeah, and you watch these teams around the league. You watch
5 sacks.
It's insane. It's crazy. And even the one turnover, it's kind of a fluky. It hits Bateman in the hands, that kind of thing. And I know people are done with Bateman, so I get that too. But it's like you watch these teams around the league, like, I'm not convinced that if that Ravens team we saw had to go up against Skylar Thompson the other night, that they could have pulled it out. Like there was just no killer instinct. And the Bills, on the other hand, had it. You had Kansas City, who shot themselves in the foot. They shot themselves in the foot in that game so many times they probably didn't have a foot left, and they still had a chance. And it was 4th and long, and Patrick Mahomes throws one up deep. And Romo made a great point that it's so hard to stop Patrick Mahomes in that spot because you're emotional about the fact that it's Patrick Mahomes and he's done that so many times. That's how you draw a pass interference if you're Kansas City.
It's a mental block.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes your focus. It's like, what's he going to do?
Yeah.
Not like, okay, I'm just going to do my job.
You're trying to make the play before the play is there to be made, and you tackle the guy, and it was very clearly a pass interference. And like, Bengals are sitting there at 0-2.
I hated that one. I hated it. I hated that one.
I hated it. Well, I didn't hate it because
the result was positive for the Ravens.
But
defender has a right to the ball. I get it, but I was like,
yeah, you've just got to time it better. Like you've got to time it a little bit better, and it's just that fraction of a inch. And if you're there just a little bit later, you can probably call that playing the ball.
Side note: something I thought was really funny. Sorry to just sidebar, but Tony Lombardi of Russell Street Report was saying like John Harbaugh is so terrible at the challenges, and he listed like all the other coaches, and it was like Andy Reid is 21 of 29 or whatever. It was like a 67% challenge success rate.
Yeah.
No one else was above like 42%.
Yeah.
I was just like, of course the Chiefs even nail challenges down. And you can get the conspiracy theory on that, and I'll listen to you. But just of course, just as a sidebar there, those are of course the Chiefs are the best at challenge conversion or challenge win rate.
If you have the best players, they're probably going to be, making it at least appear that the play went in their favor, right? And it's the small, tiny differences that just, it proved to be an absolute chasm in some cases. It's crazy. It truly is a game of inches. We can't talk about that enough. We should
Davante Adams. It's 2 toes. It's 2 toes, really.
Yeah.
It's 2 toes.
Yeah.
Davante Adams' toes, and we'll say 3 toes. Isaiah Likely's toe and Davante Adams' toes.
Yeah.
3 fucking toes.
Couple inches of Daniel Carlson, missing a I'm pretty sure his kicks were pretty down the middle, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like if he hits it in the wrong spot,
just misses one.
Yeah.
Just misses one. Or if Justin Tucker makes one.
Yeah.
It's
and that's the thing with that 2015
and that's
season.
the snowball that keeps happening.
Yeah.
It just keeps happening. It keeps being one little thing and then another little thing and then another little thing and then another little thing, and then they fucking lose and blow a lead.
Yeah. And if you take care of 2 little things in spots that don't seem as high leverage, and you sit there, like I sat there after Harbaugh threw that challenge flag in the first half, and I was like, whatever. But Taylor and Brian made the point, like, if you had a timeout there, maybe you could take a shot at the end zone, and maybe that does make a difference. You just don't know. And like, that's the thing. It's like, you know what? They lost these 2 games closely. Maybe they could turn it around. That was very true of that 2015 team too. They played in a ton of 1-score games. They lost most of them. And these things can start to snowball. And if you don't start to build some momentum positively in your way, and if you don't start taking care of the little things properly and just doing the right thing, play by play, series by series, they start to snowball, they start to add up, and you find yourself sitting in the drunk tank wondering what the fuck happened last night.
Yeah, and I do think the Ravens players I feel like they don't, not to say they don't care, but I think they're much less worried. And everyone's going crazy about Marlon Humphrey having a podcast 1 hour a week right now.
In what sense do you mean not worried?
That they're 0-2. There's so much season left. I feel like they're not worried. They know that they've been right there. They should be 2-0. They have the MVP quarterback who wins so many games. They can go. How many times have they reeled off 5 wins, 7 wins? Easier to, you don't want to look down the road, but I think they still have confidence. They know it's a nice little wake up call, a nice little reality smack. But man, again, can't start 0-3.
No,
this is huge coming up this weekend. Huge against a Cowboys team that just got embarrassed at home. That's why I'm worried. They've been so bad. The Cowboys have been so bad against play action, so unbelievably bad against the run. Just even in a theoretical where they line up, we'll get into it on the Thursday show. They have to that's their primary focus right now. That's where they're putting all of their attention, and that's where your attention is too. So it is a clash of it's like the race to the moon. Who can fix their issue first? Who can figure it out first? Can the Ravens correct their offensive rhythm, using more play action, running the ball more effectively, getting their line right? Can the Cowboys figure out how to change this, make their front more sound just pre-snap is a huge issue and a huge thing. So, man, it feels like it's funny. And when you look at to go between the Raiders and the Cowboys and the Ravens, what did I say about the Raiders offense? It's simple. It's a lot of iterations of the same things, and they set you up using it. Foundational football. And it feels like the Ravens have gone in the opposite direction. The Raiders are expanding what they're doing. They started simple, expanded. Not that the Raiders are an incredible team. I was very impressed with them, but the Ravens feel like they need to scale back.
They're going to win some ball games, I think, this year. If Minshew stays healthy and they can play even remotely close to that, I think they'll be good. I think Pierce has them playing hard. They've got a little bit more talent than even I probably realized. I mean, Jacoby Myers, good little player. And, that Trey Tucker, another, he didn't have a huge game, but he's another solid player that you talked about. And Bowers, they still got Mayer in the mix, who I obviously love. They've got a little bit of talent, and Minshew can throw the ball all over the yard. If he can kind of hang in there and be healthy, they could flirt with 500, I think.
They certainly could. Marlon Humphrey told a story on the Punchline that I think Jack just posted in their social that Marcus Williams told his team that they started 0-2 and then won 10 straight games and that ended up being the Minneapolis Miracle, of course, for Marcus Williams. All he knows is suffering.
Yeah, that guy, man. He's got one arm. He's, on the
Ravens started, what were they in 2019?
2-2.
2-2.
Yeah.
2-2 and then 1 out.
Yeah. It's true. I think
They've been there a lot. Not a ton of guys, but Andrews, Stanley, Lamar, Humphrey. Who else is on that team? Maybe Mikey Pierce, maybe one or two other guys. But those are some foundational players you have there.
Yeah, no, they have been there. Again, it's just this offensive line. We've been talking about it. We said there was going to be growing pains. I don't think we anticipate. I think we definitely had 1-1 in the budget. I don't think we anticipated them sitting here at 0-2. So it's one loss and 1-1. We would feel certainly a lot different, even if they just kind of eked that win out. But that's tough. And yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a track record of them having turned it around, and I hope the players do have that attitude that you talked about of, you know what, we're concerned, but we're not worried. John Harbaugh has been in this position many times in his career, and most of the time he's managed to pull it out. But yeah, it's just there's nothing else to say other than they just gotta. It cannot be overstressed to them how important this Dallas game is, because 0-3 that's pretty much a death knell.
You're looking at this Cowboys team just from afar. CeeDee Lamb, Davante Adams. You just had some trouble. CeeDee Lamb made a spectacular play. Toe tapping, ducking under a defender, rips a touchdown. CeeDee Lamb's a monster. They don't have a run game. They don't have an explosive back. Rico Dowdle's a nice little back. Is nothing different from
Zeke's not doing it for you in 2024.
He can get in some pass pros. He can move the chains for you. I still rock with Zeke. I've always liked Zeke as a player, but they don't have. I think Ferguson's out for a bit. Yeah. He was out in this game. Schoonmaker, the tight end, looked really good. A couple clips I saw just browsing through that game looked really nice. But Brandon Cooks, they've got Tolbert, who's a nice player, but like, man, oh man, this isn't an offense that should be terrifying you. Their offensive line is not what it usually is. Zach Martin, not maybe a world beater anymore. Tyler Smith, a nice player. They do have, a nice front. Terrence Steele's been struggling early. Defensively, they are weak and small. Their tackles aren't good against the run. Their linebackers are maybe getting a little bit too much shit while they are set up to fail schematically. But I'm looking at this Cowboys team, man. What do we say about the Raiders? The Raiders have given the Ravens trouble for years and years and years. And sometimes these weird little historical factors kind of play. The Orioles, whatever sport you're watching, somebody has somebody's number. I think the Ravens kind of have the Cowboys number a little bit.
They need to all sit down and watch the closing of Cowboy Stadium together in the big, in the big sort of the film room that they have there, where the guys are sitting in the theater seats.
They ran the ball down their fucking throats.
It needs to be like in Jarhead when they're watching Apocalypse Now, and it just gets the Marines just all jacked up. Like, they need to put that game on. And Ravens fans, I have a little fun with how much of a special place that game holds in our hearts. But it really it really should be a point of pride, because that felt like the turning of the page into a new era, going in and kind of embarrassing the Cowboys when they had, deliberately scheduled the Ravens as kind of a homecoming game for that last game in Cowboy Stadium. It really is a legendary game. And I think, all joking aside, if they could channel a little bit of that this week somehow, I think that would be fantastic.
Alvin Kamara, 20 for 115, 5.8 a carry. Jamal Williams, 8 for 39.
They were on pace for 70 points after the first half.
Yeah, it was an absolute bludgeoning. They outran the Cowboys by 122 yards. Cowboys don't have a run game. Dak threw 2 picks. They're behind. I mean, man, you got to get on this team early. They can't really run the ball. I think Ravens are 1-point favorites right now. Something like that.
That's interesting.
It is.
That's going to be
Ravens favorites to win the division still.
That's going to be, and that's interesting too. I mean, I saw Ryan Burns, who's a Browns guy, said, I don't necessarily see why the Bengals and the Ravens are favorites here within the division, because the Steelers and the Browns made the playoffs last year. But it's like, come on, man, why. Like, exactly why. And like, these teams have the quarterbacks. But what I'm looking at in this game is like, it's going to be a hostile environment. Cowboys fans, people give the Cowboys a lot of shit, but they are a faithful group of people. And that is a pissed off fan base. And they do fill that building, and it's probably going to be pretty loud. And that's another point of concern for an offensive line, where you're platooning guys in and out still. Are you going to be seeing a ton of that? Is there going to be Lamar making checks at the line? I think we've seen a substantial amount of that through these first 2 games. I'm curious. I'm kind of expecting them to have a set game plan within this first half, and then they adapt off of it, but they better hope it works early and often.
Looking around the NFL a little bit, Eagles blow a lead at home. Couldn't make plays, couldn't execute. Saquon Barkley with the drop.
Drake London, by the way, with that celebration.
That was, if the Eagles would have tied that game, that would have been an all-time. He did it right next to the ref, just pop, pop. Raheem Morris comes on today and he goes, he was firing a t-shirt cannon. Drake London's not that kind of guy.
Sure, man. Yeah, come on, Raheem. Like we're not
silliness. That's why we're dumb for covering the sport, thinking about it, talking about it like we are. Like the silliness that like finger pistols are a penalty that could have influenced the game on Monday Night Football at the end of the game.
Dude, they would penalize like the arrow shot. Like, give me a fucking break. Like, and that's another thing with these refs. Like, you know, we've talked about it ad nauseum, but it's just ruining the product to an extent. Like, if you're a new fan and the NFL is trying to grow this league into, you know, literally the biggest thing in the world, they want to be fucking megacorp. They want to be like Skynet, you know, ultimately at some point and just rule the fucking world. You know, they're bringing in all these new fans in Brazil and Germany. It's like, if I'm somebody in Germany sitting in a beer garden, like watching that game in Munich, whenever it's going to be played, and it's already a stop-start sport by nature when you're used to watching soccer, which has like one commercial break in the entire 90 minutes. Stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. And then, oh, flag. That stops it even more. That stops the game flow. It stops the, just, they need to be, that needs to be a point of emphasis, is to just throw less flags like writ large, because that is just like that. I don't know. Outside of the fact that the Ravens have been screwed by the refs a little bit already in this year, it just ruins the TV product and the.
I will say the Ravens got away. They got away with some that weren't called, weren't seen, weren't thrown a few times in this one also. And that's when you go back and watch the tape, you're like, oh, Andrew Voorhees' leg is above his waist, tripping Max Crosby, and the Ravens end up throwing like a 9-yard pass to Rashad Bateman and then kicking a field goal when it should have been a 15-yard personal foul.
They've decided that they never call tripping or clipping anymore, and they take all that, you know, kind of whatever you want to call it, all that energy, and they put it into holding, because they just call holding at will at this point. Like you said the other day, everyone holds on every play. The emphasis should not be, let's call more of it. The emphasis should be, let's call less, only when it's egregious. Like pare it down, pare it back a little bit. Stop trying to do everything.
And that's where people are going nuts right now into why is it happening? I mean, my conspiracy brain is always that maybe it's more sinister and it is league wide and league influence and what gets ratings. Again, I can go have a conversation with anyone and enjoy it on that topic. Refs have always been caught cheating throughout different sports. Soccer, the worst. Soccer is the worst. Football is the worst. They find lockers stuffed with cash and jerseys. They find all this shit. What was it? Donaghy in the NBA.
Yeah.
Or Donaghy?
Tim Donaghy.
Donaghy, pardon me. For all those years betting, like all these things. It's just, I mean, that's what always makes me feel dumb.
I'm not even saying it's like that. I just think that like they've made this rule book so big and complicated, and they've just put all these ideas into these refs' head. Like if I'm Ronald Torbert and I've got 40 different people telling me 40 different things.
The swirling mega brain of Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover, Alan doing, you know.
Except it's not like the Rain Man thing where he's like getting it right. It's like you're just putting all these ideas into this head, and it's like, how do I act on all of these at once? You can't be everything to everyone.
It's car crashes. It's different from any other sport where it's so sudden. And it's the eyeballs of humans trying to register all of that. It's
the fact that they get it right as often as they do is pretty impressive. Like
I agree.
You got to give them that. And like, you know, I'm no ref defender, but like shit, man, like they're put in a tough spot here. And the fact that they're being told to like over adjudicate and over legislate the game, it makes for a worse product overall.
It does. The Baltimore Ravens currently sitting in. They have converted 3 out of 7 red zone trips for touchdowns. Their opponents have converted 3 of 6. They're 18th and 19th in the league. I think that is going to be the big key coming up here. We're going to get into the preview on Thursday evening as usual, but I think that's going to be a massive determining factor in this game. We saw Monken recycle the play from the 49ers. I tweeted that it was a thoughtful play call. I mean,
it was a good one. I recognized it instantly. I was like, oh, there's the 49ers play. And it was Zay again.
I didn't recognize it off the bat. I'm not going to lie. But it's tough to register.
Maybe I know ball more than you.
You know plenty of ball, my friend. The Cowboys here sitting at, oh my God, they have converted 1 of 4 in the red zone, 28th in the NFL. They've allowed 6 touchdowns on 7 trips for their opponents. That is the worst in the NFL. So the Ravens have been hit or miss, shaky there a little bit. And part of that is the end of the game, you know, against the Chiefs. That's one of them. Cowboys have been dreadful there. Another point where you need to win the arms race.
Yeah.
You need to get to the moon first.
Yeah. And it's Deshaun Watson with a bum arm who was just missing guys wide open too. I mean, that game should not have been as much of a blowout as it was, but Watson just looked completely.
Prescott or Watson?
Watson against their defense. Like, if you look at that, like, you know what I'm saying? In week 1 against the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was just like, I'm talking about sample size where
Yes,
it's early season Derek Carr. People might say sample size, like he looked amazing. Like, we'll see what happens the next week. But some of the throws were there for Watson to make in week 1, and he was not hitting them. So yeah, maybe that was an inflated performance, and the Ravens can look at that and say, hey, soft spot here, do this there, put this guy in this position, Lamar make the throw.
Yeah, I don't think Watson attempted a pass over 6 yards downfield in that game.
Yeah, and
something crazy like that.
Reflected that was one of the worst.
Maybe it was in the first half.
One of the absolute worst red zone watches of all time. Tom Brady, by the way, much better in week 2, I think.
Yeah. Tom Brady much better.
He's
Tom Brady
calling
doing
this game. Yeah, so yeah, we'll get
excited for that.
We'll get a good look at
Mr.
old
Brady.
Old TB12 in the booth there. That'll be
what
good.
else we got? Hurts 2-7 in his last 9 starts. Eagles, I guess that makes them 2-7, right? So Trevor Lawrence, Jags, what was it? Jags, they're 0-2 as well.
They're 0-2, yeah.
Have not won a game since before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Lawrence hurt down the stretch last year, did not play his best ball either. Looked rough a little bit. Last week, I was kind of trying to follow red zone, but I was locked into that Ravens game, which was just pulling my guts out over and over. And like, as that is happening, and like I said, I've watched that Ravens game 700 times, your attention is naturally diverted away from the red zone a little bit more often.
Oh, of course. You have that on the small screen, big screen Ravens. We've got, what did we talk about in the preview? Couple sidebars, NFL preview. We did our preseason picks, all that. Year of the kicker. The stat floating around right now, Justin Tucker, 0 for 1 for his last 7, 0 for 2 this year from 50. Other
still
kickers,
hasn't hit from 50. I'm gonna
he's made one in the last year and 2 weeks from over 50.
Yeah.
1 blocked, missed from 61, 59, 56, 55, blocked at 54, 55. He missed 1 under 50.
Missed that game winner against the Chargers in LA too, and he got bailed out by them winning that game. That would have been a big story.
He did miss that one, that indoors too. So yeah, we talked about the big money quarterbacks. I looked at Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray. Can they play winning football? Bills come back on them, but they drum the poor Rams, man.
Yeah, my number 1 seed there is looking pretty good, huh?
It's all right. Happened to me with the Giants the year before. I mean, no Cup, no Puka.
Yeah, Puka getting
3
hurt.
of their 5 offensive linemen are on IR. I think they're like out of IR spots or something weird. Something wild's happening. They're deathly bad. And then I talked about Trevor Lawrence, big money quarterback, not getting it. They're not getting it done. Doug Peterson looking stagnant. Dak issues last week. So Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, the 2 that I was looking at. The Chargers are playing winning football, and Jim Harbaugh's just beating Justin Herbert up before games. And
he used to do that with Smith and Kaepernick too, way back in the day. It's so much fun. Like, I love Jim Harbaugh. I think he's like such a character. And like, it's so funny, like, because Herbert had no idea it was coming in like the week 1 game.
He didn't know it was a thing.
He was like perplexed when it's like, because he thought he was just like hitting him to pump him up a little bit, but then he turned him around and starts hitting him on the back. It's like, yep, this is your guy now. You got to get used to this.
It is. So what else we got? On a positive note, Travis Jones has become a world beater. I mean, oh my, was he giving the Raiders fits. I don't know what you do against him. He throws a club, which is illegal, I think, is a penalty. He strikes right to the head. Throws a right-handed club. He does the Reggie White hump move that Calais Campbell loved. I would wager very much that Calais Campbell is an influence on that for Travis Jones. He just explodes. Very right hand dominant is one thing I picked up on. So I'm worried about that right hand. I'm worried about what he's using his right side of the body for. I'm going to try and neutralize that, especially in a single block situation, as best as you can. But him and Matabike, Mikey Pierce gets a sack in this one. Mikey Pierce, obviously, very talented nose guard, nose tackle. And those 3, man, good God, did they put on a show. Travis Jones, I think Cole tweeted it out. He said, Travis Jones turned, the splash plays into 3 or 4 times a game so far through the first 2. He's a fucking problem. Him and Matabike are a fucking problem inside. So that's what's tough, man. When you're getting your front's getting pressure and getting sacks, causing havoc, and you're still losing. You still couldn't get it done. It's just, that is the quandary. You have so much going on defensively. You're making plays. You did turn the ball over. You did stop the run. You did get a lead. You are giving them trouble, and they just are able to make spectacular plays and kick fucking long field goals. And what do the Raiders kick? 3? Of course, they don't miss.
Yeah. Quiet.
4?
Yeah, I think it was 4.
4, and they don't miss one. I mean, it's just, man, in M&T Bank Stadium, they're giving the Ravens trouble.
Yeah, quiet game for Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton. I think we're going to need to see them making their
Roquan to me has been really, really strong underneath, sideline to sideline, in the run game. They just are not throwing as many post-snap disguises, changes, pre to post as last year. So that's where I'm looking for them to step it up a little bit more, get the quarterback to hold the ball. They still are. And that was the beauty of Mike McDonald's defense and Mike McDonald and getting everybody flowing. So that's what they need to step up, because the front can get pressure. The front is getting pressure. And does the Raiders offensive line suck? Probably very bad. They might be one of the worst. They might be worse than the Ravens offensive line. So again, we had that conversation, but you're getting pressure. You're getting him outside the pocket. He's throwing on the run, and he just still can't fucking end the game. It's brutal. Yeah. Brutal.
Yeah, that Bowers catch that you mentioned, that was kind of one of those. I said, fuck, man, I said there's not going to be the Mahomes plays. That was a Mahomes play. You spin out on third and long.
It was like Kelsey Mahomes. Yeah.
Exactly. Spin out on third and long. You put it, he's got the defender to his back, put it right up there where he can just go and snatch it, and it's just a rebound.
You had him covered for 3-4 seconds. He starts returning to the quarterback. He catches it, and he like Kelsey, he's like spinning around, gaining 5, 6, 7 yards down to the 1.
Yeah, puts his foot in the ground one way, goes the other. Tiki called it out. That's what you do in those fire drills. You work back to the quarterback. You've got the defender behind you, and it's just a rebound. Like, can you go up and get it? And he did.
He certainly did. So, man, I mean, I'd say the only unit that's without blame, running backs are fine, whatever, but I'd say is that front, that 4 or 5 man rush. I thought they were really strong. On that same play, Trenton Simpson kind of pulled up there. Would have liked to see him just go fucking assault Minshew, but I tweeted that out, I think, during the game. I don't think he could have gotten there enough. I don't think he would have affected it, but he plays 100% of snaps. Nate Wiggins, maybe we'll see back in this one. See the Ravens mix up their looks a little more with him, with Marlowe, things like that. So it feels like a similar test, except I think that Raiders front is better than the Cowboys. And Micah Parsons, who also is recording a podcast right after the game, was talking about all the different looks that the Saints threw at him to stall him out. DeMarcus Lawrence is a good rusher too. He's going to be on Ronnie Stanley's side. I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that matchup. Ronnie Stanley looks great. So
is Micah Parsons like a green light guy? Like late in the game, he can say, all right, I'm going to take this guy when he sees the pre-snap look.
Yeah, for sure. They're able to mix it around a little bit. And I think I don't know, I'm really shocked. Osa Digizua was really good last year at times, especially as a pass rusher. So their front is just having trouble. Again, I think it's more, which is encouraging for the Ravens. I think it's more schematic and the way that their front is aligning and leaving bad combo, deuce block, whatever you want to call it, potential, and not able to defend well, have gap integrity. Coach Vass, Chris Vasseur, who I've become, little online buddies with over time, he is like going nuts on the Cowboys front right now, that they are just set up for failure at the snap. It's schematic. So Derrick Henry coming to town, Lamar Jackson. Another thing I guess we can talk about, Dan Orlovsky makes the comments that when Henry's on the football field, it's very predictable that they're going to run the ball. And I've heard some other people talking about that when Justice Hill's in the game, the Ravens are throwing the ball. Yeah. Think about a James White. The Patriots are throwing the ball the vast majority of the time. Think about the comments about Trent Williams from maybe 3 years ago. He tackles, people say, oh, it's run pass. Defenses usually know. You can tell by where the tackle is, how the tackle's set. If
you can hear them yelling before the play a lot of the time, run or pass. They'll have a word for it, but like one will indicate car, plane, like that. It's plane is pass, car is run. Like
they know a lot more. Tight ends, if a lot of 2 tight ends now, it's a huge thing. The return to the F, we talked about that, and I thought the Raiders are cool with that. The Ravens versus the Ravens, Mayer and Bowers, Andrews and Likely, highly touted tight ends that are making a name for themselves. If both the tight ends are off the line of scrimmage, I would say 92% of the time, it is a pass play. If it's a run play, you're going to see motion to the same side and you're going to go outside, or it's a boot, or it's a pass. Yes, Justice Hill is the pass back. And that's the third down back. He's the scat back, the spell back, whatever you want to call it.
And those instances are won a lot of the time, like what you do once you line up. If you do some sort of motion, if you change the play at the line, if you change protections at the line, like that's kind of where that chess game is ultimately won. You know?
And kill. I mean, Tom Brady, Linda, left, slide left. He's telling you, everyone knows the line is sliding left.
Lantern with Flacco back in the day.
Lantern, yeah. Linda, Lantern, Larry, Ralph, Roger, right, slide right, those things. So I think a little bit of that is, can you be better about it? Can you use that as a tendency breaker? Kill is usually kill into a run. We're killing the pass play into a run. Can, kill. So I don't hate all of that stuff. Can I mix it up? Yeah. Can you run the ball at Justice Hill a little more, break your tendency? Of course. But I don't really buy into this narrative at all. The first 10 plays Derrick Henry's on the field, it was 5 passes, 5 runs. Interception was thrown with Derrick Henry on the field. The Zay Flowers touchdown is with Derrick Henry on the field. A big pass play to Likely. Henry had a reception himself and rumbled for about 12 yards. I mean, I don't really agree with that. And I felt that when Henry was rolling, they weren't throwing the ball with him in the game. Yeah. They were just fucking running it down the Raiders' throat.
Once they got that stretch run going down the weak side, he busted off 2 big ones. And it's like, that's exactly what he's there for. What they need to emphasize is figuring out how to make that happen earlier in the game, because they, like, the Chiefs did it, the Raiders did it. They keyed on it. And there were a couple different instances.
Work lateral earlier.
Yeah. There were a couple instances of them trying to run within the gaps and like him just getting swallowed up and going nowhere. And what did we talk about during the latter Roman era? They just got behind in the count way too many times. You're looking at second and
Ravens
11.
have had 22. I looked it up earlier. I think they've had 22 dropbacks with 3rd or 5 and more.
Yeah.
And I think Lamar has done okay. They were bad in the Raiders game, good in the Chiefs game on 3rd down. Too many 3rd and 5s, too many pass downs.
You built this team to be a 3rd and 2 team, and then maybe be a 4th and 1, and you convert it with Henry or Ricard or, a Kohler on the QB sneak, the Kohler Express. Like, you're built to do that. You got to get yourself there first. So they got to figure out how to make that happen earlier.
100%. Work Henry laterally. Again, that's why I talked about work Lamar laterally early, so you can run inside if you want to. And in short yardage, they've been pretty solid. The penalty doesn't count. They've been good in short yardage. They've been able to run the ball right down. Henry plow forward, get first downs, things like that. So not terribly worried. Mix it up better. Yeah, of course. Again, simplify it. Be a little more intentional. Set the Cowboys up for some looks later in games. Simplify things. So like you made the point on the last show of stick with what's working, stay on the field, let guys get into a rhythm. That was an issue with Greg Roman. I'm going to attribute that to a John Harbaugh philosophy and he said it at press conferences. We want to be very unpredictable. I'll tie that back to the point I made earlier on this show. Lamar Jackson makes you unpredictable.
Yeah.
His presence on the field makes you unpredictable. You don't need to trick the trick. You're tricking yourself.
It was something Billick had an issue with when he first got here, and he was trying to be the offensive mastermind. And it's like the pieces didn't necessarily fit, particularly the quarterbacks that he had. And that's why Tony Banks started to fall apart. And that's why Trent Dilfer said in that, I think it was the most recent 30 for 30. He was like, look, guys, I'm going to come in here and we're just going to like get it to our best players. Like, I'm going to take the snap. And if I see Shannon open, Shannon's getting the ball, and we're going to run the ball with Jamal 20 times a game. And if Shannon's not open, I'll go to Cadre next. And like, if he's not open, maybe I'll run it or whatever. Like, it's just like simplify the game a little bit and stop getting in your own way. It feels like they're getting in their own way a little bit.
Scoring is down to the lowest point through 2 weeks. I think it was through 2 weeks. It might be comparing the 2006 season to just these 2 weeks as a whole versus 2 weeks. If today's scoring stood, I believe it would be the lowest point per game total since 2006.
Justice for the preseason.
And yeah, exactly. And the lowest, and just for defenses, it's cyclical. We fucking talk about it a million times.
That's true.
Defenses have figured out. So what do I always say? What's coming next? A rule change. There's going to be a rule change in the offseason to benefit the offense, whatever. But touchdowns per game scored specifically, the lowest point, I think it was 2.14 touchdowns per game through 2 weeks versus 2 weeks of any previous season. Lowest point since 1992. Touchdowns scored per game, per team. It was 2.14. So that means there's about almost 4.5 touchdowns being scored a game. Lowest since 1992. Scoring is down. To me, man, it's the tight ends. Nelson Aguilar had one nice catch. You throw that slot fade ball, low percentage pass, deep slot fade. They've hit it. They hit it last year against the Bengals, whatever. We can talk that till we're blue in the face as well. But Get the tight ends on the field. Bateman, Flowers, Henry. Sure. If you want to work Ricard in a little bit, sure. Roll with that, man. Roll with that. That's what you need to do. The Saints, play action at a high clip. They're dropping 50 points on team's head. Play action is the hack. It helps the offensive line that's struggling. If we see sub 20% play action, even if the Ravens lose this game, I'm going to say sub 30, actually. Sub 30% play action. 30 is when you're starting to run a good bit of play action. That's kind of a top 10 teams in the league run 30%, roughly. If we see the Ravens lose this game and run under 30% play action, it is a joke. It is laughable. It is pathetic. It is stupid. It is bad football. It is not modern. It doesn't match your personnel. It doesn't match your quarterback. It doesn't match your offensive line. It doesn't match the running back that you just signed. It doesn't match your defense. And we heard Harbaugh did say, yeah, I want to run play action. He basically said that's my favorite thing, running the ball in play action. It always has been across Trestman, Kubiak, Cameron.
That was the whole thing with Joe Flacco.
Roman.
When they hired Kubiak, it's like bootlegs, play action. This is going to get him back on track. And you know what? It did when Kubiak was there. And like it's just a huge advantage for a quarterback. And you need your line to execute is a big thing, because if you're running that fake, obviously it takes away a second or two and the offensive line has to hold up for a bit longer. So that's a concern. But if you can hit on a few of those early, then that'll get the defense start thinking, getting back on their heels a little bit, and that'll open up the run game for you. It's like the analytics nerds and like the fantasy nerds talk about, like, use the pass to set up the run, right? And use play action. You don't need to set up the run to use play action, right? Like that's a kind of a fallacy. And, you know, maybe they could take that into
play action is impactful because of your quarterback, especially, and because of the running back in the backfield, regardless of if you're running the ball effectively or not. The threat of the run exists. Play action is the key. Ravens also are 32nd in explosive pass play rate right now. Dead last in the league. Not good enough. Need to be able to work the ball downfield to open things up as well. And how we're going to do that? Play action. Play action will help you do so. So I think that's where they're at. I think that's where they need to be. Cowboys, man, huge game. This game is bigger than ever could have imagined, honestly. Thought it was going to be a fun one. Like we always have said, we love the Cowboys. We love their whole brand and all the hijinks that come along from an outside.
You know what? This is kind of what it's all about, though, isn't it? You go in there, you got a critical game. It's, you know, it's win or go home, basically. What better stage than Jerry World for just a gladiator match between two teams that are hoping to get things back on track.
Sets up perfectly. Everyone's tuning in. Football game of the week, America's game of the week,
right,
on Fox here. Yeah. So we'll be watching. You'll be watching. Thank you guys for watching. I think that about wraps us up. Any other closing thoughts, my friend?
Get busy living or get busy dying.
I think we had some Q&A. We'll save that for, I think I tweeted that right before. We'll save that for Thursday. So go ahead and shoot us some questions. Maybe we'll go live on Thursday. We'll do live.
Yeah.
You guys can join us.
Yeah.
We'll do it live. So thank you to Clipper City. Again, you're wanting to go out in Baltimore, if you're coming here for a game and you want to have a nice little private patio and space to save some money, have some drinks, chill, bring some food. There's catering available. Contact me directly. Contact them on Instagram at Clipper City Barber Company. You can DM them. If you want to rent this space, it's available. We're doing a watch party here Sunday. Keep an eye out for some watch parties. October, November, December. We're going to do some here on the patio we have outside. Huge thank you to Sam. Thank you to Clipper City. Jimmy's Famous Seafood, our presenting sponsor, as always. Delicious, fantastic. They had the tailgate going. It looked like an awesome time. I didn't end up getting to attend that one, but hopefully able to in the next couple weeks here also. And yeah, man, Ravens 0-2. Season's kind of, I'm going to say season's on the line this week. Must win, and loser leaves town.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we're Bill and Sal right now, just doing guess the lines. Loser leaves town. You know, is this the worst Ravens team of the last half dozen years? Whatever Simmons likes to say, that half dozen, he's just stuck on that. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. It is that time. I'm just so Shawshank pilled right now. Get busy living or get busy dying. That's my motto going into this game. And do so by using play action, by doing all the things that we talked about. Thank you guys for listening to us ramble. So sort of a continued therapy session here after the one on Sunday night. And hopefully there's not going to be nearly as many of those as maybe I'm expecting here this season, but I guess we'll see. And it all starts this Sunday. So, yep, be sure to tune into our preview show on Thursday night. Like you said, we'll be breaking down that game in more detail, and we'll be going live the Sunday night after to break down all that occurred. If you like what you see and you want to be around for that, be sure to hit the subscribe button on our Exit 52 podcast YouTube page. If you're not already, it'll be live to all podcast platforms as well.
Do I need to drink beer? Is that what's happening, or am I being tested?
Okay, so you quit that, right? And now here we are. And like I honestly had the question. I think somebody might have had it in one of the YouTube comments on the show, or maybe it was on X or something. You just you haven't gone back to it yet, have you?
I've not had a single beer in about a month.
Interesting.
Maybe about 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm drinking
Surfsides and Trulies on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm pretty much just drinking like less across the board right now. Maybe I do need to get back into that for, obviously not as good for our health, but maybe it would be good for the health of the team. Who knows? Kind of lift the hex there. Sure, we'll have some on this Sunday. So looking forward to that. But yeah, let's get you back into that. I think that would be good. Actually, you should tweet at Ravens4Dummies with the number 4 in the middle there. Tell Spenny he should be drinking beer again. And
if you think it's me, let me know. If you think it's me,
yeah, let him know.
If 20 people say it's me, I'll have a beer.
And if you have tickets to sell,
or if you think that the gods are testing me, testing my commitment, and that's why the Ravens are on 2 to pull out my full narcissism. If you think that they're testing me, also let me know.
Honestly, it could be. That's the thing about like fate, right? Is like you could say, oh, well, this was fate, but then you could say the other thing was fate. And it's like fate. People always say this, seem to say it's like positive things. Well, maybe this is a test. Maybe this is like, can you stand your ground? Can you be staunch in your convictions, unwavering in your convictions?
Back down.
The late great Tom Petty. I love that. But yeah, tweet at Ravens4Dummies, the number 4. Tell them all about that. And if you have tickets to the Bills game, the Sunday night game coming up, be sure to hit him up about that. All of you that have tickets to sell, get into those DMs because I know he's.
I will help you. I'll help you.
He's itching to help people out with that yet again. You can find me at Jake Louque. That's LOUQUE, and at Exit52 Podcast on X and Instagram. You can find Brian, who hopefully has emerged from his funk. He's come out of the room. I'm not sure that he has, at Barstool Banks. You can find Eric at EDITTI22. That's good thing we have the Orioles here to keep us afloat here with from a morale standpoint. That's a joke. They were losing to the Giants last I checked. Taylor at Taylor Smythe 10. We thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon.
See ya.
Arrivederci.
Really, really hard, and they execute the system, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir. Trust.
He's pretty
Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir.
Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.